Mop faster, old man. This ain't a retirement home. That's what one of the interns sneered as I wrung out my bucket for the third time that morning. They brushed past me like I was part of the floor, invisible, irrelevant. I didn't respond, I just kept wiping until that door opened and a man in uniform stepped inside, silver eagle on his shoulder. He paused, looked straight at me and whispered, "My God, that's Sergeant Major Mercer." Then the room fell silent. If you believe respect is earned in silence, not shouted into a microphone comment. Salute below. Louis Mercer, 74, retired janitor worker, working part-time at a state building to stay active after losing his wife. Not because he needed the money, his military pension covered the basics, but empty rooms echo with memories and silence becomes too heavy when there's no one to share it with. So 3 days after Martha's funeral, he'd walked into the Department of Veterans Affairs building and filled out an application. No references to his military career, just previous employment, maintenance supervisor, without specifying where or when. Every morning he's there by 5 a.m. wiping floors, replacing bulbs, quietly humming old Sinatra tunes. My way most frequently, though he'd never admit to the sentimentality of it. The marble floors gleam under his careful attention, each stroke of the mop deliberate and precise. Military habits die hard: thoroughness, attention to detail, completion before comfort. The building comes alive around 8 a.m., filling with government employees and visitors seeking assistance with benefits, disability claims, and program information. Young staffers with coffee cups and smartphones, veterans with worn faces and patient eyes, administrators with clipboards and deadlines. No one really sees him. Staff step around him, ignore him, occasionally mock his slow pace. To them, he's a fixture rather than a person, background rather than foreground, the physical embodiment of infrastructure, necessary but not noteworthy. Didn't we upgrade to those automatic floor cleaners? One administrative assistant asks her colleague loud enough for Louis to hear. Seems inefficient to still use, you know. She gestures vaguely in his direction, not even looking at him directly. One intern snaps, "Don't they hire younger people anymore?" When Louis accidentally blocks access to the water cooler, some of us have actual work to do. The casual cruelty of youth, who haven't yet learned that everyone eventually becomes invisible if they live long enough. Louis never argues. He just smiles, moves out of the way, and keeps cleaning. Dignity doesn't require defense when it's built on foundations deeper than others can see. Some battles aren't worth fighting. He learned that in real war, not the metaphorical ones fought over office status and social hierarchies. Behind the scenes, he does small things, straightens tilted flags, fixes chairs with loose bolts, leaves fresh paper in restrooms, even when off shift. Acts of service that no one notices until they're not done. The invisible maintenance of civilization that continues regardless of recognition. One receptionist notices but says nothing, just nods quietly each morning. Joanne, mid-50s, whose brother served in Desert Storm. She leaves her coffee cup upside down on her desk when she finishes, making it easier for Louis to collect small acknowledgments between people who understand the value of making others' jobs slightly easier. Louis keeps a folded cloth in his locker, an old military patch stitched into the lining. 3rd Infantry Division. Not displayed, not mentioned, just carried like the memories it represents. Some identities are not abandoned when uniforms are. They're just folded away, carried close to the skin, where only the bearer feels their weight. He never talks about it, never shows it, just carries it with him like second skin. The past doesn't need constant verbalization to remain true. Some experiences are too profound for casual conversation, too complex for break room small talk. The only people who know are gone now, or so we think. His unit, his commanders, the men who saw what happened on that hill in Iraq when everything went sideways and leadership meant carrying others out under fire. When decisions made in seconds determined who lived decades. He doesn't need recognition, doesn't want it. The work, any work done well, is enough. The satisfaction of clean floors, of order maintained, of small details addressed before they become large problems. That's a mission too. Not as dramatic as combat, but necessary in its own way. The mop moves, the floors shine, and Louis Mercer continues his quiet patrol through hallways that have no idea who keeps them gleaming. One day, the building hosts a veterans job forum. Dozens of high-ranking officers and recruiters flood the lobby, tables arranged in neat rows, banners hanging from temporary stands. The usual government building transformed into something more ceremonial, more significant. The energy changes, voices louder, postures straighter, a sense of purpose permeating spaces usually devoted to routine. Louis is told to stay out of sight. His supervisor, a man 20 years his junior, who's never asked a single question about Louis's life, pulls him aside in the maintenance closet. The director wants everything spotless, but invisible. You know how these events are. A supervisor jokes, "We don't want guests thinking we neglect our janitors." Laughter follows, the kind that excludes rather than includes. Maybe take an extra long lunch. Come back when the brass is gone. The suggestion carries the thin veneer of consideration while actually communicating unwantedness. That stung, but he still polishes the marble steps until they gleam, works extra hours the night before, ensuring every surface reflects light perfectly, takes personal pride in creating an environment worthy of men and women who served his own silent salute to them, expressed through clean floors and spotless windows. At lunch, a young employee spills coffee, dark liquid spreading across the pristine tile Lewis had finished at 5:30 that morning. The employee makes a half-hearted attempt to blot it with a napkin, then walks away with a shrug. Janitor will get it. While Lewis mops, someone bumps him hard. A group of junior staffers rushing past ID badges, swinging conversation, continuing without interruption. No acknowledgement of the collision, no recognition of his presence as anything more than an obstacle. No apology. Laughter echoes. One whispers, "Probably fought in a cafeteria." Another responds, "If he fought at all." The whisper is not quite quiet enough. The cruelty not quite hidden enough. The casual dismissal of an entire life based on current appearance rather than past reality. Lewis keeps his head down, but this time the receptionist frowns. Joanne watches the interaction, notices the slight stiffening in Lewis's shoulders, the momentary pause in his rhythmic mopping. She opens her mouth and closes it. Some injustices are too entrenched for single corrections. Moments later, a decorated U.S. colonel enters the lobby, silver eagle, gleaming on a shoulder chest adorned with ribbons that tell stories most civilians can't read. The air changes. Conversations, lower postures, straighten, respect, manifest physically in the space between his entrance and others' reactions. He glances at Lewis, freezes, recognition, dawning slowly, then all at once. The double take of someone confronting an impossibility, past and present, colliding in unexpected context, walks slowly toward him. Not the confident stride of moments before, but the measured approach of someone afraid reality might dissolve upon closer inspection. "Excuse me," he says, voice cracking. "Are you Lewis Mercer?" Lewis nods, mop still in hand, halfway through a stroke that now hangs suspended between past and present. Recognition is a strange mirror, sometimes reflecting back parts of ourselves we've tucked away from our own view. The colonel removes his cover, a gesture of profound respect in military circles, the removal of barrier between ranks. "Sergeant Major Mercer, you saved my entire unit in Fallujah. You carried me out." Memory clicks into place. Lieutenant Bradford, now Colonel, the young officer with a shattered leg and determination that outweighed his pain tolerance. The night mission gone wrong, the extraction under heavy fire. The decisions made when seconds determined survival. Silence. Phones go away. Conversations halt mid-sentence. Chairs stop creaking. The background noise of institutional life suddenly muted as reality reorganizes itself around this revelation. Then the colonel snaps to attention and salutes. Perfect form, crisp execution. The genuine article, not the casual approximation civilians sometimes offer. A gesture loaded with more significance than any casual observer could comprehend. Lewis hesitates, then returns it. Muscle memory, engaging before conscious thought, back straightening shoulders, squaring chin, lifting slightly. The janitor vanishing, the sergeant major, emerging from decades of quiet hibernation. The room has never been that quiet. The silence that follows holds more meaning than any speech could contain. Recognition passing between those who understand, confusion radiating from those who don't. In that moment, invisible lines are redrawn. The man with the mop is suddenly the center of the room, not its periphery. The hierarchy that dismissed him now reorganizes itself around his revealed identity, and the young staffers who laugh stand frozen, the weight of their misjudgment hanging in air, suddenly too thick to move through comfortably. If you believe forgotten names still carry the weight of history, subscribe to Steelheart Stories and stand with us in remembrance. Word spreads through the entire building, not through official announcements or formal introductions, but through the rapid-fire transmission of human connection. Whispers become conversations. Fragments assemble into narrative. The pieces of Lewis Mercer that had remained invisible now emerge into collective consciousness. That janitor, he had 3 bronze stars, a Purple Heart, and refused a full pension to give it to his late brother's widow. Details surface from military databases, from veterans who make phone calls from records suddenly deemed relevant. The story expands, deepens, transforms from rumor to documented history. Lewis continues working, same schedule, same duties, same quiet competence. The only difference now, people watch. Now they see the precision in his movements, the efficiency in his methods. What once appeared as slowness now registers as thoroughness. What seemed like simplicity now reveals itself as discipline. The building director comes down personally, not sending an assistant or email, but appearing in the maintenance area where Louis takes his lunch break. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Genuine bewilderment in his voice, the confusion of someone whose life has been built around credentials proudly displayed. Louis shrugs. Didn't think it mattered anymore. Simple words containing complex truth. Some accomplishments don't need constant acknowledgement to retain their value. Some identities exist independently of external validation. A veteran staffer weeps quietly. It matters more than ever, his hand trembling slightly as he extends it to Louis. The recognition of sacrifice that transcends generation, that connects those who've served across decades and conflicts. The young intern who mocked him avoids eye contact, shame manifesting as avoidance, but one day leaves a note on his cart. "I'm sorry, thank you for your service." Words inadequate, but necessary. The beginning of understanding rather than its completion. The governor hears about it. Political machinery activating around human interest. Sends a formal invitation. "Come to the Capitol. We'd like to honor you." Official letterhead. Official language. The weight of state recognition offered as though it were a gift rather than an acknowledgement of debt. Louis declined. "I've already been honored where it counts. In quiet moments between soldiers. In the lives that continued because of actions taken. In the private knowledge of duty fulfilled regardless of recognition. No ceremony could add meaning to what already holds it completely." A few days later, a plaque appears above the service door in honor of Sergeant Major Louis Mercer. The strongest backbone is often the quietest one, not placed in the main entrance or public space, but above the threshold. Louis crosses daily recognition in the right place rather than the most visible one, and beside it hung under glass the folded cloth patch from his locker, not taken without permission, offered by Louis himself after long consideration. Some symbols belong to private memory, others to public history. Sometimes the same object can transition from one to the other when the time is right. Staff begin calling him Sergeant Major instead of Louis, or simply Janitor, not out of sudden formality, but genuine respect. Titles aren't always about hierarchy. Sometimes they're about acknowledgement, and Louis answers to it again, the name fitting like an old uniform taken from storage, slightly unfamiliar after long absence, but still shaped to his particular form of service. Louis still works, still but now people see him, the invisibility that often shrouds the elderly, the working class, the maintenance staff. It hasn't disappeared entirely, but it has thinned, become permeable, less absolute. Some greet him by name, others by rank. The acknowledgement ranging from casual nods to formal addresses, each according to their understanding of what respect looks like, but all containing the essential ingredient previously missing: recognition of his humanity. Others pause to listen when he hums Sinatra, find themselves smiling at "Fly Me to the Moon," or New York, New York, drifting from around corners, the soundtrack of another era becoming momentarily present in fluorescent lit hallways of modernity. The building feels different, not through physical renovation, but through shift in perception. The same space is now containing additional layers of meaning, the same routines now understood in broader context. The maintenance of physical space recognized as extension of the maintenance of civilization itself. Necessary honorable work, regardless of who performs. Every Veterans Day, someone quietly leaves a single white rose at his cart. Not with cards or announcements, just the flower appearing before Louis arrives for his shift. Silent. Acknowledgement that continues year after year. He never asks who. Some gifts aren't about the giver. Some connections don't require identification to remain meaningful. The gesture itself contains all necessary communication. One morning the colonel returns, not for ceremony, just coffee. No entourage, no official capacity, just two men with shared history, shared understanding that transcends the institutional hierarchy surrounding them. They sit in the janitor's closet, sipping in silence. Not the awkward silence of strangers with nothing to say, but the comfortable silence of men who don't need words to communicate essential truths. The quiet that exists between those who have seen each other at their most genuine wine when circumstances stripped away all pretense. "You still remember the coordinates?" Louis asked finally, the question containing an entire world of shared experience, accessible only to those who were there. "Every night," the colonel says. They both smile, understanding passing between them without elaboration. Some memories don't fade regardless of intervening years. Some bonds don't weaken regardless of intervening distance. Louis walks out as usual, not with medals, not with fanfare, just with peace and a little more space in every hallway. The respect manifesting, not through dramatic change, but through subtle adjustments in how others move around him, the small courtesies previously withheld, now offered naturally. He still arrives at 5 a.m., still checks every corner, every light fixture, every doorknob, still takes pride in floors that shine and windows without streaks. The work unchanged, but its meaning deepened by recognition, its purpose acknowledged by those who benefit from it. In the end, it's not about the uniform or the rank or the medals, it's about the man who wore them, who earned them, who carried their weight both literally and figuratively, who continued serving long after formal service ended, just in different uniform in different capacity. Some heroes wear maintenance clothes, some battlefields are ordinary buildings, some courage manifests in simply continuing day after day, regardless of recognition or its absence. Some honor lies in the mop as much as the medal. Subscribe to Steelheart Stories if you believe true honor wears dust on its boots, not medals on its chest.